Anyone who's in iGaming and is fully white hat is cheating you because they're either doing something that they're not telling you, or else they're just a simple, no-show. You cannot compete nowadays. So if anyone starts telling me, can we redirect the URL of a money page, that would be a big no-no for me. We had a team of 8 full-time people, and this is what they would be doing 24/7. I've seen 50,000 traffic views from nothing. So they generate 50,000 legitimate from ranking on someone else's brand. So totally illegal. It's never DR. DR would be the last thing. I would never go for a third party metric.
Can you share maybe some expensive mistakes that you have seen operators make with exact match domains? Welcome back to Odys Podcast. My name is Aneta Samkov, and today I'm meeting with Dirk Schembri, who is owner of Growify Labs.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us, Dirk.
Thank you very much.
So it's an exciting topic, drop catching and exact match domains.
Definitely. I think it's always a bit of a hot topic, and it's been on and off for many years.
Yes. So you will tell us everything about it. So how did you get into domain acquisition as a discipline? What was the moment when you realized that this is not just an SEO trick, but entire field in itself?
So that was kind of my first job, where initially it was to attain domains as cheap as possible, to use them, what we call very black hat cheap tactics at the time. So as you know, before maybe 2012, the exact match domain, attaining those sorts of domains was in itself a cheat code. I mean, if you have just had an exact match domain with very crap little thing content, you would instantly rank. However, since 2012, it's changed a lot. I mean, that main update actually triggered not exact match domains, it triggered exact match domains with crap content. Anyone who had legitimate content still stayed ranking. However, and gladfully, it kind of made redundant the kind of people who wanted to get a quick buck without having very crappy content or kind of not catering to the audience.
Okay. So yeah, exactly. People have been saying that exact match domains are dead since 2012, but they are still at the top of Google's results, right?
Definitely.
So what's wrong?
So this again goes by, but exact match cannot be the kind of approach, can't be your main going approach. Let me just buy a domain with exact keyword, just put in some content and hope it ranks. That can't be approach. You have to make sure, you have to take it as a kind of another building block to the ecosystem, to ranking into both Google and AI. So it is kind of a way to quicken your kind of indexing and ranking process. But again, you have to have the optimal on-page. So anyone who survived, especially now, they're making sure that their on-page is kind of as kind of clean as possible, making sure your internal linking is correct.
So what were the main updates that affected exact match domains, and what's the current state?
So 2012 was the big one, where it got rid of all the crap ones. And I would say it starts from 2023, but 2025 was the big one where we've seen very big players. I'm not sure if we should mention names. I'll leave that to you.
If you would like to, sure.
Sure. I mean,
you can say who got hit hard.
We've had people within the iGaming industry, such as, like Phoenix, obviously, because they were leading the way. They had some really good websites that they bought. Business to community, where it was, say, a news or other finance websites. And obviously they kind of abused on that authority by injecting in either iGaming or crypto specific pages that initially saw very good results. However, from the updates, they saw up to 60, even 64+% reduction instantly from month-to-month traffic. So that's
crazy.
A big hit for them, yes.
Yes. So what is the current state for exact domains?
It's all about the niche. From my end, I would always focus, never go against, if you're going against very highly competitive keywords and you're going for exact match domains, I would definitely not try that approach initially. What I would cater for is go for maybe a bit less from, let's call it the DR perspective, domain rating perspective. Go for a keyword that isn't super competitive, but has a decent amount of volume, right? So you have to be realistic. And you have to take that as kind of something to get you started a bit quicker into the indexing, onto the whatever it is, whether a specific keyword. What I would as well inject is I would inject a brand nowadays with AI. When you're catering to exact match domains, don't just put in bestonlinecasinos.com. That kind of best I would remove, rather and put your brand that you're trying to build. So I would still use exact match domains, but I would be a bit more clever into that approach. But again, it is just a simple building block. Your on page, off page, your whole ecosystem still needs to be top of the game to keep up with the game. Another thing from exact match domains is brand protection for me. So any company, whatever it is, building operators, building a brand, you're going to make sure you're building exact match domains with your brand. Because from my end, if I was very daring, it'd be very easy for me to pick domains that are exact match on your brand name plus casino, and to build sites and rank on that very quickly.
Yeah, exactly.
So that is that's one of the services that I actually cater for my clients. So one thing we go by is we make sure we see what there is available, or making sure maybe a lot of them don't even notice that they've expired. Because maybe they changed cards. It sounds silly, but the cards change and they never receive an email because the person doesn't work there anymore. We've had a lot of cases. There's not one case, but a lot of cases of these. So one thing we go over is make sure any sort of exact match domain within the brand is purchased. So at least purchase that brand. And you tell me, yeah, but I'm going to be spending this amount, whatever, 50, 100. If someone with a bit of knowledge gets that domain, puts content in, replicates your content, they'll be causing you. I have a couple of clients where we're constantly battling.
Really?
Yeah, they would overrank them in particular geos.
Wow.
Even if they come into the top 5 for you, it's causing you extra. They're taking, stealing.
That's big
bread off your
revenue
table.
loss. Yes.
Yeah, and it would have cost them silly money for them to purchase.
Yes.
So, and you will not get it back. You will not get that back. So one thing we do is we make sure we scrape all open domains. We buy it for the client. What I usually like to do is we put in, say, a single landing page for these and see which one kind of picks in first. And some of them we've had last week. Actually, I had one of the cases where one of the websites overtook his main one.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
The main money page, the official page within the geo, overtook his main site, which is good in a way, but
yes,
if that was a competitor,
exactly, that would be dangerous.
That would be very dangerous.
Wow, very interesting.
So that is very very interesting.
Yeah, so how do you see that play out in the future? Do you feel like there will be more competition in that brand protection in this kind of?
I do believe so, because I don't think that unless people stop trying to make money off someone else's business, which I don't see that happening, is you see new brands are always going to be formed. So within each new brand, you have to make sure each new company, you have to protect yourself. So there's certain things that you need to do. So I think for any company, especially gaming, if you're starting a new operator, you have to make sure you bought all from a brand protection. You don't only have the proper brand protection. You're buying all domains, especially even if it's not within your geo, like the .ca. If it's this brand .ca, if someone buys an exact match in .ca and then you want to eventually rank in Canada, you know what? I believe they have the upper hand on you there. So these sort of things, making sure you are connected with people. Listen, we don't have a Canadian entity now, but there are other entities you can use to actually help you purchase these domains. So before making even your new name public, I would always emphasize, make sure you buy the domains. Because nowadays there's even automated tools for any new, there are websites that launch new licensing, right?
Okay.
So what they do is they scrape that website, scrape that information. As soon as a new license comes in, what do? They go purchase. They don't even need to drop cache domains. They're just available because their names have never been used before.
Yes.
So that's one of the things as well. That is
strange.
Yeah. A lot of people make good money of that as well. They'll obviously push it to an unlicensed casino, wherever. But I know I've seen 50,000, traffic views from nothing.
Wow.
So they generate 50,000 legitimate from ranking on someone else's brand. So totally illegal, but again, to take that down with the MCAs, that's another headache as well.
Yes.
Even if they overrank you for only weeks, that's still money you will not get back nowadays.
Absolutely. So let's talk about drop catching.
Yes.
Can you walk us through what actually happens when a domain drops?
This is very interesting. I mean, when you initially started, I remember like my first approach was like, okay, I'm going to stay on my laptop, I'm going to refresh the page until I drop catch. You quickly learn that is not the name of the game. I mean, in case of anyone drop catching, this is a game literally of milliseconds that happens. So this starts from when a domain starts to expire, the owner does not renew it, and then it goes down to the second phase where they're given additional chance before it actually is removed from the registrar and goes into public entry. And then that is where kind of things get complicated. You can go into what we call the back order of things, where you start to actually put in. You have to try be the first one to actually register that domain, but then from that you have to actually catch it. So there's different processes to it.
Okay.
There's fortunately or unfortunately multiple different suppliers that do this. So going with one supplier is most of the time not enough. And again, you can't do this manually. You have to set up systems that do it. So you have to have systems that within a second, they're literally trying to put in 1,000 registrars at one go. So it has to be automated, because literally with normal internet, if you refresh, usually it can take a second, you're already too late for it.
It's done.
It's done. So you have to have infrastructure in place, and it's not something that you can do manually. Today, forget it.
So what's that infrastructure? Can you talk about it in greater detail?
Sure. So you have to have kind of automated systems that would connect to specific registrars that would, for specific keywords or domain terms that you're kind of fetching, you know that they're being put on an expired registrar, and you're seeing whenever they drop that you can actually register in sync. So you have constant pings going on from different services, going into different registrars as well, that can actually put in kind of the backlink order for you, the dropping for you. The problem is that once that is in place, you're still not done, because you just kind of put yourself, listen, I'm interested in this domain, but it doesn't mean that you've won or bought the domain.
Okay.
What then happens for super competitive domains is you put into kind of a private auction. That's where things can get very pricey, very competitive. Because and then from that end, you have to make sure you're put into a really aggressive bidding war. And that's where egos, I think, come in, and people pay much extra than they're initially kind of willing to. And it becomes kind of a gambling addiction in itself as well.
Oh, wow.
I haven't done one of these very aggressive drop catching in a while, but for a previous company, it was done. And literally, we had a team of 8 full-time people, and this is what they would be doing 24/7. Literally 24/7.
Bidding on domains.
Bidding on domains, yes.
That's crazy. So where people actually lose the most money?
I would think it's in the auction,
In the auction.
Yeah. When kind of, that's why you have to make sure from, say, if you're a business, you set kind of, this is the maximum bid I'm willing to do for these specific domains. The other loss is obviously if you kind of do your wrong homework on kind of monitoring specific domains, you're thinking the value of a domain is X amount, but it's actually significantly less. So you would overpay significantly for a domain that gives you little value in return, which is most of the cases.
So what are the signals that you're actually first checking when evaluating a domain?
It's never DR. DR would be the last thing. I would never go for a third party metric. I would always check the kind of history of the website, seeing how many owners. For me, how many owners is a very big thing. The more it has, the bigger the red flag. The less it has, the better. The more it's been indexed. Age is something you can't really buy in the SEO world. So if a website was live in 2010 for car sales, and you actually want to kind of renew it for car services or something related, perfect. If it's been changing hands every year, every 6 months, that's already a big flag. And then you go into the backlink profiling. What sort of backlinks? Was it just thousands of backlinks that were being purchased, just bombarding it with any sort of backlinks, or was it very related to maybe higher end backlinks coming in? Was it as well, has it been savagely like 301 into other domains? You know, it is, they buy to simply 301 it into a casino domain just to push any kind of authority. You have to kind of monitor the amount of abuse it's gone through the years. And again, I mean, the main tool is always Wayback Machine. That's something, it gives you a good timeline at least. I mean, sometimes it can be tricky because someone can hide that from you as well. But usually Wayback Machines for the majority of these things. This is why people can go in and say, listen, in the 2012, it was used for this sort of time. And those would definitely be the starting points.
What is the deal breaker for you? Like what do you see that you're just like, no, I'm not getting that domain?
The owner, I mean, the amount of owners, if you see the amount of owners changing every year, if I see that if it was a car vehicle, but somehow I see a front page in 2021 that was for gaming or adult sites, then that's a big no-no. Another one, even bigger one, would be if I wanted for casinos, if it was in any other YAML, your money or your life industry, whether that's crypto or health, then if it's changing niches, that's another big no-no for me. And then the backlink portfolio, if it's really abused, I would never waste my time on something that's been really, really abused, because to clean it, it's going to take a lot of time and not worth the investment.
Can you tell us maybe a story about a specific domain drop, like one you caught or saw someone else catching that turned into like serious money?
So usually what happens, they PBNs, so you have a private blog network. So what happens with these exact domains is usually we would build a PBN from them. So you would make sure that footprints are non-recognizable between them. So you have to have a really well infrastructure in place before you start planning to buy, where you host them, these sort of things you have to cater for. Because if you leave very clear footprints that I can say view myself by just seeing the website and the history, then Google is going to view it very, very much easier. Remember, whatever it is, Google is smarter than us in these things. They have infinite resources. So you have to make it as difficult for them as possible. I believe that some good ones that you would attain, you would always regenerate old content that we know was indexing on those pages. And then we've had some sites that in some rare cases would almost move into money websites that it re-indexed so good with a little bit of care on content and on new backlinks, they just catapulted back up. And those would move into different tiers. So from a simple PBN drop catch exact match domain, would eventually let's start pushing actual, top list on it, see what it gets. Since it's getting specific viewing for best online casino in a very specific city. So like we could say longer tail keyword. So those are good cases as well. Other cases is when I try to drop catch manually, I got a domain, I wouldn't say caught it in the same fashion, but I bought a domain based on exact match domains. It was in travel industry. And after I reverted the whole content from Wayback Machine, I started cleaning it up and making sure I redid the whole internal structure. And funny enough, it started generating after a few months. It started generating, let's say, just a bit less than, say, €1,000 a month. So for something that had little effort, and it's still generating similar numbers today.
Really?
So from the updates, it went up and down with little movement. You can see from the update if it treated it good, and then somehow it reverts back. So now I'm keeping it as like a test scenario where I don't touch it, and maybe for specific cases, I inject it with something. Let me see if I overdo it with certain amount of content on the homepage. Let me see if this goes positive or negative from certain updates.
I see.
So that's really interesting. I think that worked because it wasn't a .com. It was in a very specific geo. It was
exactly what made it valuable.
What made it valuable? I saw it had a very clean backlink profile. So it actually got a handful of backlinks from quite authoritative tourist websites in the past, and some were actually still live. And I had the full display of content on Wayback Machine. I had a very clean kind of export I could do. So you can use systems that would export all the text and images. And I reverted it back, and I actually built a new CMS system with it and injected the old content on it. That was like my first project. This was 2017, I believe, 17, 18. And I just kept it there. So it's still at me till today, one of the very few that I keep.
And you mentioned the geo.
Yeah.
Can you speak a little bit to that?
I feel that domains, obviously, example for Canada, .ca is always much more of a stronger signal. Problem is in some cases, in some geos, to register them is a bit harder because you have to have either Canadian citizenship or Canadian address. But in some geos, I know like .co.uk, just to mention that, it's much easier to get a domain. So if you're really targeting UK, I would always try and favor a very specific .co.uk or whatever it is, New Zealand. The very specific geos are always another metric to increase the ranking.
And on the flip side, because we just talked about a success story, can you share maybe some expensive mistakes that you have seen operators make with exact match domains?
So on the failure of exact match domains, it's one that comes into play is not checking the background checks properly. So taking a bit things for granted. So example, when you do background checks, don't just check from one supplier like Ahrefs, because sometimes different third parties do generate different. Some backlinks aren't shown on one supplier, while backlinks are shown on the other ones. So we just set a specific, like an SOP, like a guide for people to drop catch, and it was a bit too generic. So they would buy domains while not doing proper checks. So after buying, it was almost on the 1,000 domains. The majority of them were, once we actually did the secondary review, we noticed that these are quite crap. We're going to have to kind of not put them into the PBN system. So that would be a total waste of money and time. So those domains, we have to just let them die and nothing else can be done on them. The second thing you can do is if we kept those domains and actually kept them to push them either to other guest posts going to money sites or going to money sites directly, if you don't do proper checks on certain domains that you kind of catch and you kind of push those backlinks into your money pages, you can eventually be hindering your money site at the end of the day.
What is the most costly mistake you have seen?
Oh, funny enough, yes, I thought of that. I saw a question, and one that I remember very innocently, we decided there was a specific URL with the brand of the operator. So whether it was, example, this brand.com,
yes,
the .com was with an underscore, and the rest of the site structure was with a minus instead. And we said, let's kind of keep things all in check. And we decided to update to generate a new URL so that with the underscore with a minus. So the brand name minus com,
yes,
instead of the underscore. Obviously, we made sure that the redirect was done properly, the content was identical, but it took, for some reason, it indexed quite quickly, but the traffic instantly dropped, and it never wanted to come back as well as quickly. So, and it was one of the main pages. So that was not a nice mistake. The managers were definitely not happy with that. We tried to revert it back, but they didn't want to pick on as it was before. So then we just put it back into the way we really wanted it, but it never fully recovered, funnily enough. And backlinks were all the same. We made sure that from a backlinks point of view, but because there's an extra funnel from a redirect going from one page to another, it did not.
That's crazy.
Like that. Crazy. I mean, we thought it would be quite innocent to do it, But that's one thing. So if anyone tries to tell me, can we redirect the URL of a money page, that would be a big, big no-no for me.
Exactly. I wanted to ask about 301 redirects in 2026. Are they still working?
Yes, I would think they as long it all comes down. What I like with the 2025 update is that it cleaned up a lot of kind of parasite websites or websites that were using mixed niches in them. So I think there was a huge cleanup. So sites that are still ranking nowadays, I think there's a much cleaner portfolio. In the case of 301s, as long as you always do your history check and you always redirect to a niche-related website, or at least into a page, and whenever you redirect, there's many other parameters. So you have to make sure you redirect page level. You don't just redirect the whole blessed website to a home page. That is one of the things that kills me all the time. As long as you do the proper checks, there's proper redirect, canonicals are updated accordingly. I'm still a firm believer in 301s, yes. Maybe not as aggressive, mix of niches. You have to, again, it depends on how aggressive and how risk-taking you're willing to be.
Yeah, how close do they have to be in the niches to work?
I used to work on a basketball website. It was a basketball website purchased by a previous employer, which was generating a lot of traffic within basketball in the US. We got that website and we put in fully unlicensed gaming, and it was generating really well. So it ranked top of any state. Practically, it was doing very well. From this update, it got destroyed. So from sports betting to basketball, even though it's sports, I still think for a money site, it might be a bit too risky if it's something you want to build and nurture for a long time. If it's maybe a bit more sports-oriented news, very global sports, and you're doing about sports betting, then yes. But if it very much depends on the risk. I like to keep it as close as possible. Again, I stayed the basketball one because you tell me, listen, isn't that sports? But it was very basketball-oriented, and since they abused it with all type of sports, and then even crypto came in, so I think that was the downfall.
Okay.
Just make sure you keep it, if it was sports and sports betting, keep it to there. Don't put in crypto stuff that don't relate anything to sports or basketball. Mixing those sort of niches, even with people who aren't as black hats, still I feel got affected by it.
Interesting. And there's a theory that Google is softer on iGaming than other SERPs. Do you think that's true, or this is not the case?
I mean, there are some cases which non-official that you can say, listen, this website wasn't affected as much. But if you see we'll go back to Phoenixio. I mean, all their websites were anything they had within iGaming that they mix the niches still got penalized very badly. So I would not say that, because at the end of the day, iGaming is still a your money or your life industry. For me, anything that falls into that is still kind of something you have to be careful with. So there's finance, health, and iGaming is still very sensitive. So no, I don't believe there isn't really an official one that states that iGaming is out of it. The only thing is you can say is that maybe because there isn't paid aspect, there isn't the PPC aspect, there's another thing.
How does that change the risk in iGaming?
So in the case of like health, right? You can't have PPC campaigns going, but in the gaming, it's quite a strict no-no.
Yes.
Maybe the black hat approach is very tricky, keeping channels up. So I wouldn't even get involved in that. So in the case of iGaming, the iGaming industry leans more towards the black hat, because obviously you have to kind of put all your marbles into ranking organically, because if you don't have that, you can't use PPC as a backup. In the case you're a health niche or something, and you can actually have that as a backup. Listen, we lost ranking because of this update. Let's focus more on the PPC side of things. You can, but with gambling, really, you can't.
There's no alternative.
No alternative. So you kind of, even the management, the shareholders, they understand that. So that's why they're more willing to go into the black hat market.
Okay, yes. So what is the next exact match domain? Like the signals that's cheap, underrated right now?
I would, again, as I think I stated before, is mix in the brand. Don't mix in bestonlinecasino.com. Don't look for that. Instead, integrate your brand in it. First of all, in the world of AI and the way ranking is going, building, even if you're an affiliate, build a brand around it. So if your brand name is called The Affiliate, put in The Affiliate onlinecasino.com, or you still want that keyword, but don't focus it only on the exact match keywords. Integrate the brand in it. I think that is a safer bet. It's that, and as well, do not go for anything that's, say, a proper DR50. Anything that's proper domain rating 50, has a very strong backlink portfolio, has been there aged. Don't just think you're going to go exact match, the best, whatever.com, and thinking that's your flagship to go with. I would beg against. I would not be willing to invest in that venture.
Okay. And with the big iGaming affiliates like Phoenixio, RakeTech, who are like running hundreds of domains, are they doing like something category different from what you're describing, or it's like similar?
I think you mentioned two very obviously competing players. I mean, RakeTech as well is all in the license game, even though they do very well. Phoenixio is in a different game. They're both playing within the same sport, but very differently.
Okay.
So I think Phoenixio, at least the way I remember it, is they're very much in the churn-and-burn approach. Let's go in, make sure we get as much as we can from this domain. Let's kind of expand all we can. Let's beat it up as much as we can until it dies, and then we'll dish it up and start a new one, no problem.
Yes.
In the case of RakeTech, no, being that they're licensed as well, they're kind of there for the long game. So any product they even buy or attain, they're making sure it's an established long player who has a very good history in itself. Phoenixio and that sort of player are more they're more willing to risk certain stuff. But again, they are still, I believe, top of the game. Their teams are always willing to try different stuff. They're constantly testing, and they're not scared on trying stuff that can eventually get them penalized, obviously, on certain things. They're willing. They invest a lot. So one thing I have to take my hats off there, they invest a lot in their internal research and development, like the drop catching. They have their own departments. I mean, they are not people to play against. They'll do whatever it takes to win. That's what I'd say. In the case of RakeTech, it's a very different, maybe not fully white hat approach. Let's call it the gray hat approach. That's the main difference I feel with them. But these sort of disciplines would still work. Anyone who's in iGaming and is fully white hat is cheating you, because they're either doing something that they're not telling you, or else they're just a simple, no-show. I mean, it doesn't make sense you cannot compete nowadays.
And with drop catching, actually, I wanted to ask you, can you share some tools that you would recommend for that? What are your favorites?
Best, there aren't really out of the box. There used to be, but they're completely non-existent anymore now to do it, because you have to build kind of your own.
Oh, you have to build your own?
Yeah. But
you build your own tools?
I mean, there's AI to help you nowadays. It's just making sure you generate the requirements. That's what I'd say. But with AI, You can actually build certain infrastructures in place that can automate it today. You can plug in sheets in as well, plug in API from registrars as well. There's the ICAN, however you say, making sure you're pushing in certain requests to those channels, just understanding the flow. But honestly, if you really want to do it with AI, I've tried some things and it's become much simpler.
Yeah.
I mean, Cloud Code can, but again, it's the requirements. You have to make sure your requirements are properly.
Yes.
But I don't believe that there's a proper out-of-the-box tool. There used to be, but all of them that I'm aware of have gone out of business. First of all, because the footprints has now been exposed. The main thing is the footprint from where the servers are being hosted. All these have been exposed now. So if one is exposed, it exposes the rest of you because there's all these little connections you can do. So I would not recommend doing third-party if someone is willing to do it. Because if you're going to invest in something like this, you're going to go for the long haul. You know, you're going to want to buy thousands. You're not going to do it just to buy 10 domains. You want to buy hundreds, if not thousands a month, and eventually see how to kind of redistribute those to benefit your money sites at the end of the day. It's a long-term investment.
Yes.
So I wouldn't do it just to get your one pretty domain name.
Can you give any tips on building your own tool for that?
Building your own tool, in that case, you can speak to me if anything, or contact me. We'll talk about it. But again, one thing is I would ask, why do you want to get into it nowadays? I would lean away unless you're a big company that wants to compete with someone at Phoenix. I wouldn't lean into something like that. There are other means. Unless you're a huge company and you literally want to get into it to build your own in-house infrastructure, I wouldn't do that because it's not that easy. You can really mess it up. You can waste a lot of money very easily. There are other means because again, it's just one building block of many to rank. So it's not like the 2012 cheat code where if you get a domain, you're going to make a hell of a money from it. It's just another block you're building to benefit your ranking.
What are the alternatives?
Making sure, again, the on-page for me is the aspect you have the most control. So making sure your on-page is constantly being checked, optimized. Your internal linking. I mean, your internal linking is the strongest factor you have, apart from backlinks, which you don't have. I mean, aspects in.
Yeah, but I meant for like building your own tool. What are the alternatives? Like the other means that you mentioned.
I mean, you stay kind of seeing the auctions yourself if you want to check a domain. But usually the ones that are left on auctions, why are they left on auctions? I would ask myself, But there's like, if you want to even just get your hands a bit dirty, subscribe to the example, GoDaddy auctions, go in it and see when they expire, see the bidding wars, how that happens on it. See if you can kind of, if there's any domains that are about to expire, you can see the list of them and you actually start putting bidding wars on it. But again, and before you do that, analyze a website. See from these expiring, check, and do a review. From these 10, I think these 3 are weighted. And then maybe ask someone in the SEO, listen, from these 10, these are expired. Do you think this is actually from the reviews I did? Is this weighted? You have to understand why is a domain weighted when it expires. Make sure you do proper checks so that you actually attain the domain. You won't be wasting your time and money. So building proper SOPs. SOPs is practically a guide on things you need to check before on domains you're going to chase and the tools you're going to build for it. If to do it manually is not, I'll be honest, just don't do it unless you want to just for fun.
I see.
You'll be wasting time to do it in mass.
And with AI search now taking over, are the exact match domains still relevant?
There's nothing official, but from tests and people that I speak to, there's actually more benefit that they're seeing from having an exact match with little to no DR rating. As long as, again, we're saying that your content is good, you have proper LLM systems being structured on your website, you have proper structured data, and your own page is on par. Having exact match is seen to have more benefit to being picked up, cited by AI than actually having super high DR.
Really?
Yeah. Not official. Nothing is official. But from some tests, that is something that looks promising for now.
Yes. So what are your predictions for the future of exact match domains and drop catching?
I still think it will be beneficial at the end of the day. It's just obviously it's going to be cleaned up more. It's going to be harder to pick the good ones. I think make sure you do proper checks. If anything looks semi-cautious, just eliminate it. You have to be quite strict in your checks, making sure don't go for mass. It's all about going for quality rather than quantity, I think, nowadays. Where before you can go just catch 1,000 domains. I prefer to get a bit less domains, but they're really on par on the kind of parameters that we want. So I would go for the quality over quantity aspect of things. But again, with AI, if you don't have your own page, your proper structured data, you're not going to be cited anyway. So.
Thank you so much for sharing all those insights with us, Dirk. And if you enjoyed this episode, contact and follow Dirk on LinkedIn and subscribe and like our podcast.
Thank you very much.